Hello, guys. A very good evening to all of you, and welcome to the fifth episode of the Malkan Show. And how have you all been this beautiful week? We celebrated the Valentine's week, Valentine's Day last week. We spoke about love, right? So tell me, guys, how have you been since the last session? How was the week for you? Did the Cupid land? How was the day for you? And how are you doing the entire week? Please share in the chat box. Also, who is joining from where? I'd love to hear that. So quickly, if you can share in the chat box. Great, you've been good. Come on, quickly, if you can share, where are you from? How has it been for you? Nilesh from Mumbai. Hi, Nilesh. Chaitari from Chennai. Okay. Hello, good evening, all of you. It's so good to have you. Hi, Anju. It's good to see you here on the show. Archana from Pune. Nagesh from Bangalore. Great. Hi, Jyoti. It's good to see you all here. So tell me, guys, was a week good for you last week when we spoke about love? You remember what we spoke about? We spoke about loving yourself above everything, right? So those are the three little practices that we discussed on the show of not criticizing, loving yourself, etc. I'm sure you actually went ahead and practiced those things. I mean, in small to small things in daily life, and I hope that worked out for you. The show is all about discussing these small little nuggets which you can really apply in day-to-day lives, and also discovering a whole new part of yourself through the small little things that we discuss every week. That's my intention for you on the show. Well, before we begin, as always, for people who have not yet read hashtag cash out, let me tell you, we've had such wonderful 2 more reviews on Amazon on the Kindle version this week. So please, who have not got the book, please go to malkanbook.com and get this for yourself. Hashtag cash tags. The book is just not for traders, but for anybody who thinks like me, like how I used to think that stock markets are a gamble and they're not for everyone. Right? It has some amazing life lessons as well, plus great interviews of good people in that field to talk about. So grab your copy and see what the book has to offer you. Right? So now let's jump on to the session today. Uh, Today we're going to talk about something important, which is, let me tell you something. Whatever we've been learning all our lives, we learn to do a lot of things from the time we were born. Most of the things that we've learned it through somebody else. There's nothing that we learn by ourselves. Imagine as a child, the very first thing is you learn to do something for yourself. You learn to walk, you learn to talk. How do you learn those things? You watch people do that and you learn that for yourself. When you grow up, you learn a variety of skills. You learn to dribble a ball, you learn football, you learn to swim, you learn to read and write, you learn to do all these things by having someone else coach you or guide you how to do it, right? So someone has to teach you how to do that, right? Also, regarding our values and our belief system, someone has to teach us, someone has to show us how to have the right values. Most of the time, we do that by imitating people in our lives, but sometimes it does happen by following someone. So, guys, all these things that you learn from people, these people are called the role model of your life. So, which means that these are the people that you're learning all these things from. So, whether you're aware or you're not aware, every time you have someone around you, either in person or not in person, whom you are role modeling, whom you're learning from, right? So, we've all had this some point of time in our lives or another. It could be anyone. It could be people from your family. It could be your friends. It could be your parents, your siblings, your foster parents, your grandparents. It could be your friends. As you expand, as you grow in life, you expand your community. You go to school, you go to high school. So the teachers you meet there, your students, your fellow students, they're all your role models. Plus the books that you read, the heroes that you follow, these are all role models too, right? So they are examples of the kind of decisions that they make, how they make their decisions. We're observing those and we're learning to take decisions ourselves, right? And some of us who are lucky to have the right role models get into living a very successful life, versus some of those who get up ending the wrong role models. They have a disastrous life. So it all depends on the kind of role models that we choose for ourselves in this lifetime, right? Think about it, guys. Role models are everywhere. my coach, John Wooden, who is my role model actually, he says that role models are everywhere around us. All you need to do is to seek them out. Such a brilliant statement to make. Everyone around us, we're either trying to role model someone or the other. We just don't realize that he or she is our role model at this point of time, right? So every time you watch someone and you make a note of what that person is doing, you are role modeling that person, right, without you being aware. So role model is something that anybody can give, and role model is something that anybody can receive, to put it in plain terms. So either you are learning from someone who's your role model, or you're role modeling yourself. Imagine, if for people who have kids, imagine how is it like with you. Your kids are constantly observing you, so you are their biggest role model. If you ask me personally, my personal role model, my role model in my life has always been my mother. The kind of values that I have learned from her, the value of being right, the value of righteousness, to always act right given any situation, the value of trusting and having the faith in the Almighty, the value of having the family united. I mean, being the strength of the family, the value of maybe being there for my kids, come what may. These are certain things which are so strongly rooted in me, which come from my mother. So this is the kind of, each of us has this kind of role model, right? So in this session, I'm going to break this into three different parts, as usual, how we discuss specific things to do. So the kind of role models we all have are clearly divided into three categories. That's what my coach John Wooden says. So the first category of role models that you have are the people in your family, people whom you live with, beginning, of course, foremost with our parents. It may go on to our siblings, our uncles and aunts, if it's a joint expanded family. It could be anyone, but people around you who you're in constant touch with. Right? These are the people, the first category of role model. So this, some of you may realize that here is a person from a family or from a friends, my community, who is my role model. Some of you may not. You may subconsciously be taking lessons from that person or imitating certain values and beliefs of that person without you realizing that this person is the this is the person I'm role modeling. This is the person whom I'm trying to imitate. For instance, when we do that, especially with our parents, we never realize. It's so natural. It just comes into us. And then we call it's hereditary. It's come from one person to another. But no, it's the role model that has happened with imitation, right? So it could be anything, it could be any person. So guys, tonight I want you to take some time out from your when you go to bed tonight. I want you to sit in a quiet place, be with yourself, and think about who is that person from your family who has been your role model. And I want you to do a small exercise. Why don't you take a fresh page and a pencil and write a letter to that person, telling him or her that, yes, dear Dash, you have been my role model so far. That's how I discovered today. I've realized today, sorry. And this is what I want to tell you. And write down everything to that person, why that person is your role model, and what are the values and beliefs, or what are the things that you think that from your mind that you think you're imitating from that person. It could be anything. Do that for yourself and see a lot of things. You'll find a lot of things opening up for you. You'll feel connected to that person, the connection gets better, and you will have better clarity in your mind why you feel that you have been role modeling that person and what is it exactly that you're imitating or role modeling from him. Right? So that's the first category of people. Guys, do this exercise. It's really powerful. I've done that. I've had my family members do that. It's amazing. It's really magical. Just do that exercise and see how it feels. The connection goes down much deeper by doing the simple exercise tonight. So do that tonight, guys. The second kind of role models are the teachers and coaches in your life that help you become extraordinary at whatever you're doing. Right? All of us have had amazing teachers in our lives. For me, if you ask me, my history teacher has been really amazing. She's left a mark in my life. I mean, she was the lady who used to teach me history in 8th grade, I believe. And from then on, she has been an amazing role model for me in everything, in the way she maintained herself, in the way she had the poise of a lady to the impeccable English that she spoke. It's everything, So she was a very good guide to me as well. So she has been my role model. Second in this category, those moves into first category as well. But this person who is so special to me, he was also a family member, but more importantly, he's been my coach always, is Vishal. I know he is my husband, so it could come under the family too. But the thing is, the way Vishal has coached me to become a trader first, and then a trainer, and then a coach is remarkable. The kind of things that I've learned from him, all from his values and his beliefs, his impeccable thing to, his go-getting attitude to go after it no matter what, his perseverance, his attitude to failure, his big heartedness, everything is something that I've really got from him. So he has been in this new career that I am. He's been my coach in this career. So he's been my role model when it comes to this. So even you must be having this kind of role model, who a teacher or a coach who has taught you this particular skill. And remember, guys, when it comes to teachers and coaches, even though you go to that person to learn that so-called technical skill, so to say, but it's always the life lessons that we come out with, because no big coach teaches you only the technical stuff. It's always the life lessons that come out from that person, which is so invaluable. So who is that person in your life? Who is that teacher? Who is that instructor? Who is that mentor? Who is that coach whom you have been role modeling, on both on the technical, also on the personal side? Who do you think has had this big influence in your life? And that, when you think about that category of people who have influenced you so far, write down their names and write to them why they are so. Remember, when it comes to coaches, they have this one important task to do. Their words keep challenging us all the time, and their actions keep inspiring us all the time. So even though the coach is constantly instructing you to do things, but subconsciously we're observing what the coach is doing, and we try to do not what he says, but what he does. When you take the example of John Wooden, for instance, he was a big basketball coach, and when you read about what his players whom he coached, his players had to tell about him, they all have one standard thing to say, that we never, more than what Coach Wooden asked us to do, we always observed him. And he lived a very righteous life. And that's what his players used to do, right? So for me personally, what my coach says is, I have it written down here. If you see on my, this is my vision board here, right behind this computer. I have these things written. So what he says is, that he gives his own definition of success. And then he has these 6 rules, what he calls 2 sets of 3. These are something that I always have right on my vision board. I read every morning, afternoon, evening. It says, never lie, never cheat, never steal. Don't whine, don't complain, and don't make excuses. So it's fine to read these set of rules that my coach has laid down. But more importantly, what's important to me is when I see his videos, when I see what he has to say about his wife, what he has to say about his players, it inspires me so much that this is the kind of life that my mentor has lived, my coach has lived, and this is what I would love to live as well. Right? So that's how it goes with the second category of role models, which are called teachers and coaches that you've had in your life. And the third and my favorite category of coaches and role models that you can say are someone whom you've never met, someone who may be a big personality and whose life inspires you so very much, but you've never met in person. And that kind of role model comes through books or through stories that you've heard. So this is the kind of role model each of us has. As John Wooden says, it may be possible that you may end up being around someone that you don't like, but it's never impossible to just remove a bio from your library and then read about that person and be surrounded by that person, which is so beautiful and so true and so easy. You want to be surrounded by successful people, just go to a bookstore and pick up a nice autobiography. Read about Mahatma Gandhi, read about Mother Teresa, read about Nelson Mandela, right? They have such beautiful things to say. You're surrounding yourself, you're learning the values and the belief systems of those people, even though you have never met them in person. So this brings you a very important quality of role models. It's not necessary for them to be right in front of you. They can be in the form of audios or videos in the laptop. They can be in the form of books in your bookshelf. They can be anywhere. They can be those stories. When I was young, my mother used to tell me stories about Shri Krishna. And that time I used to feel, wow, what a super child. I mean, wow, even I want to be having such a child around me who does these kind of wonders. And then I grew up reading about the Bhagavad Gita and what the message that Krishna had to give in the Bhagavad Gita. By default, he became my role model in that area. So it could be anyone. So the love for him originated through my mother's stories, but eventually it turned into a bigger role model when I started reading more about him through the scriptures that I did. So it could be anyone, but this could be one of the most important role models that you have, because there are a whole lot of them around us, and their influence on us, guys, could be tremendous. So for those of us who aspire to become great traders, we had this huge bandwagon of successful traders whom it's not possible to travel the globe and meet them in person, or maybe take the same lessons in person, but it's 100% possible by reading and watching their videos. Right? They have been more than generous to provide us so much coaching through their books and videos and audio programs. So let's take opportunity. Let's see who are your role models in this area when it comes to people, big personality, or someone whom you've never met. Make a list of those people. So, whenever you talk about role models, always understand there's always a special relationship between you as a student and that person as a role model. This is because when it comes to being a role model, you could be that to someone else. But please understand one thing: there's no pretense when it comes to modeling. There's no pretense at all. Your model has to be, in terms of his values and beliefs, completely naked in front of you, and you can't pretend. Neither can he or she pretend, neither can you pretend. It's a very clear relationship, as pure as a mother and child. It has to be. Only then you can say that I'm role modeling that person, or I'm being a role model to that person. Right? So lessons that are taught, again, even though they may teach you technical lessons, but always remember to get the life skills from them, because that is what makes them a good coach and a good role model. Right? Now tell me something, guys. 2 questions to ask you. Can you remember the name of the person who has had the greatest influence on you so far? You may write down the answer to this question after the show. Think about it. At bedtime, just be with yourself and write down the answer to this question. Who is that person who has had the greatest influence on you so far? And what is the biggest lesson that you have learned from that person? Write down. I know when it comes to multiple choices, you have to think and rethink and then arrive at an answer to both these questions. Nevertheless, go for it. Attempt to do that. Right? And if you remember, when you're talking about learning things from people, remember you're passing the same things to your children, to your generation next. So be careful on what influences you're having from your role models. And when it comes to those people who you have never met and who are only in your books, always be careful of how you are taking down those lessons and those references from them. Are you maintaining them in the form of images, or do you have notes, or do you have their pictures? How are you doing that? So this evening or tonight, I want you to take time off and really think about all these things on your role models in each of these 3 areas. How are they influencing you? Who are your influencers? What are they influencing you on? And you remember always the one golden rule is, it's not about how much you learn from these people, guys. It's about how much you choose to make a part of your values and beliefs. That's what matters. You may learn 110 things from them, but what is it that you're really imbibing as part of your value system, as part of your belief system? What are you planning to take from them? Keep it with you, live that thing, and really pass on to your next generation. That is what matters, right? So that's where the whole crux of role modeling lies. And the last thought is, when you have taken advantage of having beautiful role models around you, always remember, each as a responsible person, as someone who's been role model, it's always our responsibility and our duty to pass it on to people. Which means if I'm being a coach right now, there have been some wonderful coaches above me who have really taught me these amazing values. It's my duty now, my responsibility to pass it on to people who need my help. It would be heinous to just sit on those things, just learn from them and not do anything about it, right? So that's it. So it's your responsibility, guys, to really pass it on, pass on the buck. If someone has done good to you, been a great influencer in your life, Be the influence. Pass it on to people. Right? So some simple things we've learned tonight. Before we close on, I'd like to hear how have you felt about this topic? So nice to see people sharing their role models. My father has been my role model and influencer. Very good. Anything that you'd like to share? Something that has turned out for you? Okay. Get that. Yes, indeed, they are inspiration. The people around you, absolutely. Started missing him. Oh, I'm so sorry. Vishal sir keeps patience and waits for the right trend. Wow, that's nice. We can imitate to that person easily without reading through books and so on. You are a role model to all the women traders. Thank you. My role model myself sometimes is that okay, I'm confused. Yes, it can be when you feel that you have read about a lot of things and you feel that you have built a strong value system for yourself. What do you think is you try to feel that you yourself are influencing your own thoughts, etc. Right? So that could be very well possible. But do remember to stick by those values and systems. So, guys, just to recap what we just did today, we spoke about how role models appear in our lives, what are the roles, what is the role that they play in our lives, and we divided these role models into three categories. Category one is category one is those people in our family, our parents, our siblings, our friends, people around us, right? Part of our community. Second kind of role models are those people who have been our teachers and coaches in our journey, who help us lead an extraordinary life. And the third kind of role models, it could be any of those big people around the globe whom we have read through in books and heard them in stories. So these are the kind of three role models. The action for you on this show, for this episode, is write a letter first to the role model from your family, telling them that they have been your role model, and listing out why have they been your role model, what are the things that you've learned from that person. Also, to identify a respective role model in all the three categories, list down the answer to these two questions. Who has been your biggest influencer in your life, and what is the influence that they have caused upon you? Write an answer to this question. If any query or should you like to know more about this subject, please feel free to get in touch with me. I'd love to help you out on this one. If you don't have a role model, I strongly suggest you find one in each category. Think about it. It's most of the time we have the answer, but it's not available on the peripheral thought. So think about it, go deeper. But by the next week, by the time we meet, I would love if you have one or two people's name at least under each category. I'd love this. And if you feel that you've benefited and you love this video, request you to please share it among your family and friends so that even they can take advantage of what we've just spoken. Thank you very much. It was great speaking to you. And I'll see you all next Wednesday. Thank you. Bye-bye.